Hi, I'm Kevin Delaney. I'm editor-in-chief of Charter. And I spoke recently with Sal Khan. He's the CEO and founder of Khan Academy. Many of you are probably familiar with it and have either used it or your kids have used it. The online education nonprofit has been a powerful platform for people of all ages to gain knowledge and learn skills. And that gives Sal a unique vantage on how education, training, and work will evolve with the further application of AI. Khan Academy has been piloting an AI tutor and teaching assistant called Khanmigo, and Sal recently published a book titled Brave New Words: How AI Will Revolutionize Education and Why That's a Good Thing. This session of the Charter Workplace Summit is our conversation with Sal Khan. I think you'll find it practical and enlightening. Thanks for having this conversation. And what I'm really interested in is how employers should think about AI skills and the role of AI training in preparing students for the workforce. And the first question is one that I think a lot of people are wrestling with, which is what are the enduring human work skills in a world with ever advancing AI? So some people say students should study liberal arts, others say deep domain expertise is the key to remaining professionally relevant. Others say you need to have the skills of a manager to be able to delegate to AI bots. What do you think are the skills or competencies that ensure continued relevance professionally, employability, and so forth?
Yeah, I'll tell you the ones that I've been thinking about, or I tend to answer. I mean, to some degree, everything you just listed is kind of true. Um, I, you know, I I don't think a particular course of study, like I'm a big fan of the liberal arts, and I think that's going to create a lot of value, but I don't think that somehow makes you like AI proof if you studied. But some of the other things, like the thing I talk a lot about is almost every job, almost every job has a uh, let's call it a human interaction side to it. It has a personal connection, relationships, collaboration, selling aspect to it. And those are things that I think, even the most ambitious optimists around AI don't think AI is going to be able to do well anytime soon. And so I think if people can lean into those things more, actually, I would say as employers, managers, we've always known that a great salesperson, a great manager, a great coach has certain of these human intangibles, and we've called them intangibles. But I actually think, ironically, AI is going to be a way that we can start to make these things a little bit more tangible. You could start to even, we're exploring ways that you could have assessments on things that before you thought were intangible, but now you could have someone give a talk, someone go through a simulation where they're trying to convince someone or debate someone or manage someone and get and so anyway, I think that human element of it is lean in. But the other element of it, and everyone's seen that, you're not going to get replaced by an AI, you're going to get replaced by someone using an AI. So I think that's the other side of the coin is oh, a a, a desire and willingness to, I would say in the very short term, in 5 or 10 years, there might be fairly mature AI tools. And then if you are in, say, HR, there are going to be some AI HR tools for screening resumes or for writing a job posting and all of that. And then at that point, if you are in that field, you should know those tools because there's going to be just whatever industry best standard tools. Between now and then, there those tools are emerging. There's a million startups that are trying to do this kind of thing. But I think it's really important to give people a little bit of that curious entrepreneurial mindset. These are the people who are going to succeed. These are the people you want in your organization who are like, I'm going to try this stuff out. And what you as a leader, I think, want to do is give not only time and permission to explore these tools, but encouragement and pretty significant nudges. I try to tell the Khan Academy team, like, hey, spend a couple hours a week using these tools and share your stories when they worked and when they didn't work. And as we discovered that there are people at Khan Academy, the software engineers are the ones who are already off to the races. The best software engineers using AI now are, by their own words, 3 to 5x more productive. And then you highlight them and you say, hey, the software engineers who say they're barely using it, talk to this guy or that gal. So I think as leaders, we need to encourage people to lean in, try things out, share it. It doesn't have to be a stick. It should be more of a carrot of highlighting the people who are doing really cool stuff. Oh, wow, you work on the marketing team, and you're not the AI isn't writing your final copy, but it's doing the first draft, and because of that, you're able, what used to take 5 hours is taking you 1 hour. Get those stories out there.
In terms of the human skills that you started by mentioning, I spoke to one technologist who said that she wished she'd studied public speaking and drama. And I think that's the point you're making, right? Part of it's like persuasion, sales, communication that are still in any scenario rest with humans in the workplace.
Yeah, and what I would say is, sometimes we have this fixation on what people major in or what they studied formally, but like that person could join a local improv troupe like tomorrow. And we are in a golden age of learning, even before, even, and it's going to get even better with AI, but like I'm sure there's someone in her local community where she could do some public speaking and get some feedback, and now anyone can publish stuff online, they can make videos, they can, so there are outlets there. So people shouldn't wallow in their regret. They should take action and they should start doing that. And I agree, it's really funny. One of my most memorable experiences in undergrad, I remember, was my first term freshman year. Yeah, not a surprise to folks. I was fairly STEM focused, and I went to a STEM focused school at MIT. And I was like, okay, they say I have to take some humanities, and I had a pretty heavy course load. And I'm like, okay, well, there's this acting class. Let me take that. That seems like a light class. And it was a light class in terms of it didn't have a lot of homework and I didn't have to study a lot, but it really pushed me out of my comfort zone. It really made me comfortable in situations that a lot of people would feel awkward in. And even though it was like for 2 or 3 months back in 1994, I still have moments where I'm like, oh yeah, I'm able to do this now because of what I experienced back then. I was also on the improv comedy troupe my freshman year, and that experience has paid huge dividends the rest of my life. And in some ways has helped shape what I now do for a living. So yes, I think those types of things are very valuable. And I think I'm imagining a world where you are going to start being able to, not, I don't know if quantifying is the word, but you're going to start being able to measure someone's extemporaneous thinking, their ability to improv, their sense of humor. Sense of humor is a huge thing, but it doesn't show up on an SAT score. It doesn't show up on, summa cum laude. I don't know how funny that person is, but it's important. And sometimes it comes out in a job interview. Sometimes most people try to suppress it in a job interview. So those types of things, yes, 100%. And there are ways to develop them, and there are ways to screen and measure for them.
When you're hiring now, like what do you advise people to think about in terms of what they're looking for and the ways that they assess it, and how is that different, using the AI tools that are currently available to managers as part of that process?
I, I don't think it's a dramatic departure from what good organizations have always been doing. I mean, to some degree, the job interviews or the series of interviews is all about trying to glean some of these intangibles that we've been talking about that don't show up on a resume or show up on test scores or grades. I would say, like, I mean, right now, how would I use AI? It's obviously you can use it to get a job posting out faster. You can, I can imagine there's probably people doing startups like this, but it wouldn't be hard, especially for a larger organization, to construct it themselves. In fact, they probably want to construct it themselves because there's going to be idiosyncratic things to their organization. I I, uh, I think it'd be interesting to experiment with screening resumes, and I know that's a sensitive area with bias and et cetera, et cetera. But I always point out, I write a lot in my book about this, is humans are incredibly biased, and as far as we know, HR managers are spending 10 seconds per resume at best. I was just on a panel with some admissions officers, and it's a similar type of thing. They're trying to create a community of people, and the community means much more than just your SAT scores, et cetera. And they are already, in some ways, the admissions offices at universities are further ahead, I think, than a lot of hiring managers are. They are at least using AI to actually undermine any bias that they might have in the process. So as they go through 10,000 applications, 50,000 applications, they also have AIs reading those applications to take any diamonds on the rough, any false negatives that they on their first screen that they might find. I think that's really valuable. A lot of people have lip service to diversity, et cetera, et cetera. But sometimes you got to work a little bit harder to see the storyline in a resume that doesn't have the standard schools or the standard work experience. So I think that's probably something that people could do sooner than later. Um, I think I think we're a year or two away, probably a year away. If someone's really motivated, they could be 6 months away from even having initial screens. Like right now, someone gives you a resume and a cover letter, and um and then and then only if maybe 20, 30 people will get the phone screen. You could imagine a world where an AI, like you on the employment on the job website, I can upload my resume and cover letter, and then based on that, the AI then says, hey, do you have time for a few follow-up questions? And the AI says, hey, I noticed a gap in this part of your resume. Can you explain why that was there? Like, if I were to ask the manager, you said that you generated $300 million in sales. If I were to ask the manager, how much of that would he or she credit to you? Or just,
Yeah.
or can I have their phone number and call them up? It's,
You just said earlier, the AIs, both these models actually exhibit like great bias in some instances, but also can be used to debias it. And we, in our own organization, we've done that, looked at our performance reviews and used AI to kind of gut check where our blind spots are. Um, what about management and the work of managers? Do you see any specific ways in which that will change thanks to AI? And one of the things that you talk about in your book is a relationship between teachers and the AI tutor and students, and parents and the AI tutor and students, where the AI tutor becomes a source of transparency all around in terms of the work that students are doing. And it struck me reading that there's a very obvious application in workplaces for managers who are struggling to assess the level of effort and the skills of the workers who they're working with.
yeah, I actually thought you were going to go someplace else with that question. But
Where
yeah,
did
so I mean,
where did you think that was going to go?
well, I thought you were going to, well, I'll answer both questions, the one
Yeah.
you asked and then the one I thought you were going to ask. Uh, and so you're asking about how do you assess what someone's doing, and you're right. Like right now, you observe what you observe, and then people sometimes try to self-review, and then you kind of, you know, if you're a really well put together program, you have a rubric, and and then you, um, but uh, well, I'll throw out an idea, which I'm just really thinking about for the first time on this call, is there is a possibility of an AI being able to like every artifact that someone wrote, every email, every code, everything that it has that context, and so that it can almost write the self review and almost in a less biased way. That might be interesting. Um, I and some of that context might even be, I said emails, it could be Slack threads, it could be, eventually it could take in. Now, it could be a little bit creepy too, so we have to be careful there, but it's an interesting idea. What I thought you were going to ask, I guess a slightly related idea. I think about how much of my time is around communication and alignment. And, every organization Khan Academy is not a huge organization. We're 300 people. I think between me and most of the, most junior employees, there's at maximum 2 or 3 levels of management. So it's not like a ton of layers. And I'm pretty accessible to almost any of the 300 people. But even in that organization, I see how much times there's a disconnect where, we have some high level strategy or high level HR policy, and people's direct managers aren't able to represent it well. And what oftentimes happens is they're probably, the junior employees probably getting from their manager, like, yeah, I don't get it. I don't get why Sal decided to do this thing. And that's not useful. That's actually the opposite of, what a manager should be feeding information up and also helping build alignment and helping represent something closer to the team member. So I do wonder, we haven't done this yet, but I do wonder if you could start, and I think about how much of my time I'm on Slack, and Slack's an environment that AIs can already understand quite well. How much of my time is just driving alignment and following up and asking questions, and a part of me thinks like, wow, if an AI just observed me for a little bit, it could probably do 80% of this stuff and really drive alignment. Or it could even say, hey, the product management team and the engineering team are interpreting what you mean by portability slightly differently, Sal. Which do you mean, this or that? And I say, oh, I mean this. and then it can message. So I,
Yeah.
I don't claim that we're doing all of this stuff, but we can imagine that kind of stuff might happen. I'll say one last thing. The book I read a lot about AI being a guardian angel on students. Your question makes me wonder whether AI, I don't know if guardian angel is the right word, but it is something that's just, yeah, it's in the water, and it can observe when, folks are getting misaligned, folks are feeling off, folks are getting loose in the socket, things like that.
Basically, you're thinking about, is there a way to ensure the fidelity, quality of the communication and information across the organization, which is one of the big challenges of managers
Yeah.
traditionally. It's like the
That's the
signal.
job of managers. I mean, if we talk about mid-level managers, that's kind of their job.
One thing that a lot of organizations are thinking about is skills-based approaches to their talent, to their workplaces, and in some ways, it brings them, it aligns them with the approach of the educational system that that you're deeply enmeshed in, because it's like, does someone know how to do this thing or not, and what are the ways in which they can learn it and actually be have some credit, accredited way to know that they actually have done it, which is one of the ways in which they use Khan Academy. Do you have a view of skills-based approaches within workplaces, and any thoughts um, on how AI tutors and training fit within that context?
Yeah, I have a high level, I've anyone who asks me if I had, more resources, or if I were the emperor of the world, what would I do? I always talk about it. Well, I would create a global or national competency based system. Um, well, some of it would be the stuff that Khan Academy already works on, traditional academic skills, but I would try to map, and I would do this in conjunction with employers. What are the top skills that you really care about? And then I would construct assessments. And this is where AI is powerful. This goes to the early part of our conversation. Like, if you really care about someone's salesmanship, whatever that means, I mean, you could probably break that down into more dimensions. Um, you could probably have someone go through AI simulations now and glean a lot, frankly, a lot more than you do currently, just looking at someone's resume and doing 5 rounds of interviews. And so that you could create a competency base, like, wow, someone has achieved this level of competency when they go through that. And that simulation, today it would be text based, but in a year or two, it'll feel like this. Like, you think I'm a real person, but the Sal you're talking to is an AI,
Yeah.
and you will be the salesman, and I'm going to be like the buyer, and you have to convince me. Um, so anyway, there's going to be some cool stuff there with AI. Um, yeah, and the way I think historically there's been a tension between standardization and consistency at one end, um, and richness at the other end. So you could do narrow things in a very standardized, consistent way, SAT scores, et cetera, which can be important. Or, can you do math? Can you read? Things like that. But then there's all these other stuff that we tried to glean through a interview, through a simulation, through a thesis defense type of thing. But I think, and those things, not only are they inconsistent, they are very expensive, resource intensive to administer. I think AI is going
Yeah.
to,
What do you
and that's
and
the
what are
importance
the
of AI.
what are the implications for going deep in skills, like being a real, like, have depth of domain expertise in finance or marketing? Does it lessen the value of that or change that in any way?
I'm not sure. I think as I read in the book, you definitely have to be strong, because if you are managing AIs, just as if you're managing human beings, you need to be able to hang with them. You need to be able to know what great looks like. You need to be able to guide them. You need to be able to put the pieces together. But there is a class of person that every organization has who knows, that idiosyncrasy of the tax law, who knows that little function call that no one else knows about, or about this esoteric library. I wonder. I want, because that's the kind of stuff that AI is actually going to be quite good at. Like like um but there's still going to be wisdom from experience. Like, if you're a lawyer, yeah, someone might know this one little part of the tax code, and an AI might be able to help you discover that faster. But there's also the person who's seen this case 100 times before, and knows how a human jury will react to it, things like that. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know whether that deep specialized knowledge is going to be just as valuable, more valuable, or maybe a lot less valuable.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a question a lot of us are focused on. Sal,
Yeah.
thank you for your time. We really appreciate the conversation.
Yep. Thanks, Kevin.